Hey everyone, today I have with me Sarah Steinberg. She is the founder and CEO of Frogstone Strategies, advising colleges and universities on the creation and development of revenue sustainable programs online and on ground for adult and non-traditional students. Are you a non-traditional student? Listen up. Sarah combines her passion for all things higher ed with her own teaching online and on-site. She holds adjunct faculty positions at the University of Pennsylvania and Georgetown University. Her penultimate passion is for her three grandkids, Dahlia, Judah, and Noah. Welcome to the show, Sarah. There's so much that you're leaving out on this bio. I cannot wait to dig into it. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks so much, Amanda. I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, well, we're going to start all the way back to undergrad at Cornell. Do you remember what you thought you wanted to be? How did you imagine your career path being?
I came into Cornell knowing for sure that I wanted to study engineering. And that kind of started in high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was really good in math and science. I had no idea. It was my father who kind of directed me. And
we've heard it before, the parent influence, but then you were thinking about your strengths, which I think is really smart. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And I had this crazy idea actually that I was going to combine civil engineering and archaeology. And the reason was that we had actually been in Israel for a year when I was in 11th grade, and I went on an archaeological dig, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. How do these,
I've been on that dig. I think I did that with Birthright. That's really cool.
There you go. So maybe you wondered the same thing I did. How did they know how to build these things? And why are they still standing, today, 2000 some odd years later?
Yeah.
Or more. And so anyway, I knew I wanted to do something like that. And when I got to Cornell, that was my plan. It was going to be a combo of civil engineering and archaeology.
So you were an overachiever from the start, which makes sense that you then went on to take on an overachieving type A role. You were the vice provost for student affairs and then executive vice provost at Johns Hopkins University. How do you go from thinking, I'm going to be doing this combo engineering architecture thing to running student affairs? What did that journey look like? It could not have been straightforward.
It wasn't straightforward, and I'm sure you don't want to hear every little turn that I went through, but
I want to hear the strongest turns, like the points where you're like, the oh shit moments. That's what I want to hear. Let's get right to the good stuff.
So there weren't any of those kind of moments when I graduated with an undergraduate and a master's degree in civil engineering, and I got my first job. I also got married to another civil engineer. And so we both moved to Chicago and we both joined different engineering firms. I thought that was what I was going to do. There was no inflection point in that plan. In fact, until about 6 years into my engineering degree, engineering work, when I realized that, in engineering, you really have two choices. You can go a technical path or you can go a managerial path. And I wanted to do the managerial path. So that was inflection point number one. While I continued working, I went to Northwestern University to get my MBA in marketing and finance.
Okay.
And
so you're arming yourself with the knowledge that you need to take this path. So you're looking ahead. You're saying, okay, here's what I see is going to be expected of me. I'm going to, gear up.
Exactly. So it was adding to exactly what you said. And oh, by the way, we had a 4-month-old baby when I started that program, but that was just a little.
So you're throwing a ton of things on your plate. I don't even know how you did this. This doesn't even seem feasible to me.
I'm not sure how I did it either, to be honest with you. But I did. I went to, it was school full-time, work part-time, baby 24/7. That was the first inflection point. And I did start moving into more managerial things. I became an operations manager. Then I switched firms. I became a little bit more active in the marketing of the services and engineering. And then came the next inflection point. We had moved back, we were in Chicago, we had moved back to the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area. And I had joined another engineering firm. But at this point, we had 2 kids and there was just too much travel. So travel became the impetus for the next change. And, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was just one day, so this is the serendipity part, that sometimes you just don't plan for it. It just happens. I was reading the local newspaper and there was an ad from Johns Hopkins, and it was like reading my resume. And sometimes that happens. It's not always the recommended path for getting a job. It's like an ad in the newspaper or wherever nowadays the ad would be. But that's what I did. They were looking for somebody with an engineering background, somebody with an MBA. It was just like checking it off. So I applied. It took Hopkins forever. It was like 4 or 5 months of interviews and waiting a whole lot of time. And then another interview, waiting a whole lot of time. But anyway, I eventually got this job, which was a program director in the engineering school at Johns Hopkins. So that was the next major inflection point.
Okay, so you're getting your foot in the door in this education world. The waiting, that does sound horrible. I think the waiting is the worst. Anyone who's ever been dating or, I mean, and that's what job searching is, right? It's like dating at another level, and you have to be so patient.
You have to be very patient. You have to answer the same questions a number of times. You have to make sure that you're keeping the pipeline of conversation open as best as you can. So thank you notes they were a good thing back then, and they're a good thing today.
Oh my gosh, yes. I interviewed John Rowland, the giftology guy, about the thank you note, and I think it's so important, and it's often forgotten because it is so easy to connect today, just so quickly. But if you take that time to write the thank you note, I think it just speaks volumes, especially job searching.
It really does. You have to do something that's going to get you to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know who your competition was. But this was another interesting thing. I found out later that it came down to 2 people: me, who was still relatively new, certainly new to higher ed, and a retired admiral.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so, I mean, how did you stand out? Did you feel like, some of those things, those elements, the thank you notes, the patience, what else made you stand out?
I did something that I often recommend that people do.
Ooh, okay. Wait, everyone listen in. Everyone lean in right now, because I feel like this is going to be good.
I visualized myself in the job. And I used to drive over to the campus and sit in the parking lot and just think about what it would be like to be working for Johns Hopkins University. For those of you who don't know, the #1 research university in the country, very prominent school, well known for its medical work, although I was going to be on the university side. And I think that visualization of being in the job and thinking about what would I do? What would my first day be like? What would my first month be like? How would I excel? Was the difference. That must have come through. I really, really wanted this job, and I could see myself in it. And so every time I had a chance to talk to somebody over that interviewing period, I was telling them things that I wanted to do. I think the retired admiral, I can't speak for him. I'm sure he was very qualified, but he was probably thinking about this as a second career toward retirement. And I was thinking of it as the start of a career in higher education.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you were telling them what you were going to do because you were already living that. You could experience it. And so you could see that future because you'd taken that time and you were able to then create a dream for what this role would be. And that's very enticing for anyone who's looking to hire someone, like what you're going to be doing for them instead of, hey, what can you do for me?
Exactly. And you don't want to tell them everything that they should be doing because you don't know. You haven't actually been. I was sitting in the parking lot. I wasn't in the building. I didn't I didn't want to make too many assumptions. So you have to be really careful. It's a fine line that you walk, but um, you can still make some general comments about the things that would be of interest to you to work on and how you could contribute to the success of the program. So
Yeah.
but that visualization, I've since learned is a technique that people use. I didn't know then that it was just something, I don't know, it was like a magnet. I was just sort of drawn to the campus. So
That's really cool. And I've been to that campus. I used to hand distribute print college magazines on Hopkins campus. Right behind me is a copy of
I know.
Mike
It's
Vosden,
not,
who
and
was,
right behind me is a picture of a building on the campus that I was given when I retired from the university. So
I can see how it was a magnet. And I think that's really neat that you were visualizing before that was coined a term that people talked about. Um, yeah, I think that's awesome. Well, so let's talk about what did it look like to get to be in that role? What was a day in your life like?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, that I even remember that was 25 years ago. And what I do remember, and and I'm not sure this is going to sound like, wow, I don't ever want to work for higher ed, because what I do remember over those 20 years that I was at Hopkins were meetings. I was always
Mm.
in meetings. And when I moved up enough to be able to have an assistant working for me, the majority of the time, at least 80% of the time of the assistant was spent managing my calendar, believe it or not.
Oh man. Okay.
So many meetings.
So if you think you
Everything.
want to get into higher ed, everyone, be prepared for meetings.
Exactly. And why do you have these meetings? Because universities and colleges operate on the basis of consensus. And it's not a top down, you will do this. And so if you're down somewhere in the organization, you're just following along what someone else has decided. On the contrary, what's very exciting about the higher ed world is that your voice matters. But to get your voice to be part, you have to participate in a lot of meetings. And those days, the meetings were all in person. These days, the meetings, often use technology. You don't have to. In fact, earlier today, even with one of my clients, I was a big university that was holding a big meeting. There were about 30 people, and I would say about half the people were dialing in through Zoom. Including me, because I'm on the East Coast, the school is on the West Coast.
Shout out to Zoom. We're using it right now. Well, so yeah, I mean, well, we can fast forward. I mean, yeah, what inspired you to develop Frogstone Strategies, which you're doing today, right? We don't need to go 25 years back. Let's talk about today.
Right.
Because obviously that wasn't repelling enough, all the meetings, to turn you away from higher ed. You're still in it. So there was something that kept you there. So what was that?
So this was now career number 3. So it's like Candyland. If you've ever played that, I don't know whether anyone who watches
That's been
this
years.
podcast has ever heard of Candyland, but I play it with my granddaughter. And you move, your little piece along this path, and it's a circuitous path. And that's been my path. But all along, ever since I got the MBA at Northwestern, it was like they implanted something that said, you have an interest in being an entrepreneur. And so I always knew, and at the university, I had a lot of opportunities to do entrepreneurship inside the university. So intrapreneurship, not entrepreneurship. And so I knew it was in me, but I couldn't fully have my own responsibility in my own company. And the reason I left Hopkins, I was eligible for retirement and all the benefits, so the timing was great, was because I was recruited to be the CEO of a small startup called Shalom Learning. And
see, she leaves things out of her bios, guys. I don't know what to do. That's pretty cool.
So that was career number 3.
Okay.
So first was civil engineering, second was higher ed, third was CEO of a startup. Mm-hmm. And I had a great mentor in that. I wasn't the founder, obviously. The founder of Shalom Learning is a guy named Devin Shane, and he was incredibly inspirational, and also has, even today, a great desire to teach, to help people to know everything he knows. He wants to impart to other people. That's a mentor, and it's important to have a lot of them along your way. And that's a whole nother topic, because I had very good mentors at Hopkins.
So what was a day in your life like that, doing that, getting to run your own show now?
That was very exciting and very different. Obviously, I had come from a place that had 30,000 employees. Mm-hmm. So to one that had, I think we had 4.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was a big change, but I was working directly in all aspects. I was raising money. We were a nonprofit raising money. We were recruiting synagogues to be, using the product. We were doing product development.
And what was the product for anyone that isn't familiar?
Sure. It's it's basically Jewish education for kids who are ages 7 to 12. Okay. So,
I mean, I did my time at Hebrew school. Would this be in addition to Hebrew school? I paid my dues.
And regardless of faith, chances are kids are paying their dues today, going to Sunday school, going to something. And well, these days parents are super busy, and traffic, especially around here or where you are, is terrible. And so you don't want to drive your kids all over the place, and you don't want to arrange carpools. So
yes, oh my God, the dreaded carpool to Hebrew school. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So we put it online. And today I'm the chair of the advisory board for Shalom Learning. So I still keep up with them. When I left them to start Frogstone Strategies, they had 600 students, and now 6 years later they have 6,000 students. So
oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Doing quite well.
Well, that's incredible. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that product is I think that's an exceptional product. I mean, imagine how much more you'd be looking forward to going to that school after school if it was online, and not having to worry about the transportation and all of that. Well, so you've spent your career, I mean, after the engineering side of things, really getting to know the audience of students, right? The emerging professional, which is our audience, our listener right now. You guys out there sitting there thinking like, how do I go after my passion? Maybe you don't have a job yet and you're like, how do I get my foot in the door somewhere? Or you have a job and you're like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me. Having worked with so many emerging professionals, what would you say have been some of the greatest challenges that they face when it comes to career?
It depends what stage they're in. As you said, they're all different stages. So when I was the vice provost for student affairs, I was working obviously with undergraduates primarily. And one of the greatest challenges that they actually faced, and I'm sure are facing today, is that there's so much pressure to get that right job, get the perfect job right out of school. And the pressure comes actually from the school, because they want to have their graduates placed in good places, which is why they have career centers and they do what they can to help the students. But it also comes from the parents, it comes from the grandparents, it comes from, the family can put a lot of pressure on a student. So those entry level experiences have a lot of expectations loaded on top of them. And that I think is a big challenge. And the best thing you can do about that from a student perspective, I think there are two things that you can do. One is that the Career Center really can be your friend. And if you're still in the university and you're listening to this podcast, or you're recently out of the university, I would strongly recommend that you make friends with the people in the Career Center. And if you're at a university, that should start when you're a freshman, well before you're going to reach your senior year. And so that's the first reason. You should be as prepared as possible. You should get as much help as you can for networking, for making the job connections, for helping you with your resume, of course, for interviewing skills. All sorts of things can be handled through the Career Services Office.
And just having that basic conversation of what do I want to do, having that, bouncing that off of somebody that knows, that is an expert in this space. I mean, there's nothing more valuable than that. Oh my God, walk into those, open those double doors, get into that office, even if you have no idea what's going to happen, what you're going to say when you get there, they know what to say.
Exactly. And that leads to the second thing. They're not your only resource. The fact that your parents or your grandparents or other people walking down the street are, asking you, what are you going to be? What are you going to do?
Everybody asks.
Turn that around.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is to turn that around and try to gather information from those people. What do you think that I should do? You know me really well. What do you think my strengths are? Do you have suggestions? Or if you have an idea of what you want to do you have connections that, can you connect me with somebody that I could do an informational interview with? And just flip the conversation so that you're not feeling the pressure, but you're leveraging that pressure for your benefit.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We think we need to know all the answers, and instead, right, flip it. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. I think the flipping helps. And I know that you don't want me to go all the way back again, but there was another inflection point when I got my doctorate in higher education during the time that I was at Hopkins. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to stay at Hopkins, wanted to go to another university, wanted to move on to be president of a university. And so I took a year, not a year off. I didn't take a sabbatical or anything, but during the course of a year, I made myself a list of 10 people that knew me really well. And I made a plan to do at least an hour discussion with each of them. And everyone was just so willing to help me. And I was just asking them basically one question. You know me, we've known each other for a long time. What do you think are my strengths, and what do you think are the areas that I need to work on? And I guess I asked them two questions. And what do you think I should do? I asked them that too.
Give me the answers.
Exactly. I did ask, give me the answer. Please give me the answer.
But I think that's amazing. I mean, to stop always having to look within and be alone in these decisions,
Yeah.
but to then bring in our community, the people that know us best, and have them weigh it in. And sometimes you can see things that you don't always see. What did that help you discover, after those 10 hours of conversations, which I imagine were probably incredibly valuable?
They were extremely valuable. It took a year. Some of these people were obviously not available just because I wanted to do it. And one thing that came out was the fact that they said, well, you got to follow your passion, I'm like, okay, I'm, almost 50 years old at this point that I was doing this. So 50 years old, and I could not answer the question, what was my passion? So I hate to tell you that, but you don't always know what your passion is. And what I knew was that I loved working in higher education, and I loved working with all aspects of whether I was working with the students who are in higher ed, the faculty, the administrative leadership. I just liked the whole organization of higher education.
Yeah.
And so
it sounds like you kind of knew. It sounds like you kind of did know, but it's taking that moment to pause and declare it.
Exactly. I couldn't, I needed to go through that process of talking to people. And that, in the process of talking it out was how I arrived at that passion.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew, to get to your question about why did I start Frogstone Strategies? Well, I got all this entrepreneurial experience at Shalom Learning, and I knew that I wanted to get back to higher education, not K-12 education, which I was in with Shalom Learning. And so I was following my passion. Then I was very clearly following my passion.
Yeah, it's so much easier to make those decisions and kind of connect in the ways that you want to connect to get towards that passion when you define it and
Exactly.
and declare it and speak it. I think that's a big part of it, because it's not just something that you do with yourself, but it's something that you're starting to have more conversations. You're like, this is what I'm really passionate about. And before you know it, the conversations that you have with people just totally shift, because they're like, oh, if they're passionate about that too, you're like, oh, I want to connect you with this person. Like, you're on the same wavelength.
Exactly. And exactly. You just start talking it out. Because remember, when I got out of school, I thought my passion was civil engineering. Mm-hmm. And it was, for about a decade, it was civil engineering. I really loved civil engineering. I didn't leave it because I didn't like it. I left it because it wasn't fitting my lifestyle. My work-life balance wasn't right.
And it all evolves too, it sounds like. I mean, it is a journey.
It very much so. Very much so. And I think that should be comforting to people, because you don't have to start and end with the same passion. Yeah. I'm here to be a living, breathing example of the fact that you don't have to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. Well, okay, tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
Well, because I have all of these different passions, I couldn't settle on one object.
Okay. Okay. She's multi-passionate. That's okay.
Exactly. As we were talking earlier, my grandchildren, I have 3 grandchildren. You mentioned them in the intro, and there is no question, and I think you can see this picture.
Yeah.
That the 3 little kids here are overwhelmingly my passion. And what does that mean? It means every free moment that we have, that my husband and I have, we are, driving up to New York to visit the grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So that's a passion, and it has to fit into our work schedule. You know, when you want to devote your time, you can have a professional passion, you can have a personal passion, and if you want the two to mesh, you have to figure out how to do that. And so that's what we do. So that is number one passion.
Okay.
Now,
And for
number
those listening
two
to the
passion,
audio, the first thing she showed was a photo. Okay, and let's see what this next one is.
right. The second one is a photo also. For those of you on audio, I apologize that you can't see this, but I can describe it. So the first one was just a picture of the grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law. But the second picture, well, you might wonder, where did this name Frogstone Strategies come from?
Oh, I am wondering that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so frogs are a passion of mine. And so I designed this card. For a while, I thought Johns Hopkins University was my passion. And so this picture, for those of you who can't see it, is a Beanie Baby frog holding a pin that you would wear that says "Love Hopkins." And so it was kind of combining both of those passions. And I could, if you wanted to take a tour of my office where I'm sitting right now, I could point out ceramic frogs, more stuffed animal frogs, little frog keychains.
What is about the frog? Why the frog? I think I see one behind you too.
Yes, there is one. There are quite a few, actually. Probably can't quite see the clarity in the picture. And so what is it about a frog? I don't know. I've never actually had a real frog, like as a pet or anything like that. What I like about the frog is what the frog represents to me. The frog represents jumping from like solid point to solid point. So it's not really jumping from challenge to challenge. I mean, that's true, or opportunity to opportunity, but it's also from a solid point to a solid point. So each time I've moved along in my career, I've made sure that I'm moving from a point of strength, if that makes sense. So when you make your choices about careers, it's really important to be thinking, what can you get out of this opportunity? Even if it's a place that you don't intend to stay for very long, what is it that you're going to gain from the experience that's going to be useful for your next leap? And I've been very fortunate to have that opportunity over all of these different career leaps that I've made, to be doing it from a position of strength and a solid foundation that you can leverage.
I absolutely love the symbolism, right, of what the frog stands for, and just this piece of wisdom too, because I think sometimes when we are looking for something that we want, we don't necessarily feel that we live up to that, or we're, as what I like to say, #qualified, the name of the book, of my book. But if you come in with that mindset, and not from a position of strength, and if you need to get to that position of strength, get there, because that is what is attractive. That is what's going to help you get to that next lily pad. Exactly. of another stable ground, right? So I think that's so important. And surround yourself with the people that help you realize that you do have that strength within you, and gain those qualifications in other ways to feel that strength to move on.
Said it better than I did.
No, I mean, I didn't know that the frog represented so much. That's so beautiful. Well, okay, Sarah, it has been such a pleasure to have you on this podcast. I wrote down a couple notes while you were talking, and there's one thing that I want to leave everybody with to do, so to take action on. So you're listening right now, you heard what Sarah had to say, and now I want you to take action. And this one thing that really stood out to me is we all get asked, what do you do, or what do you want to do? And especially if you're not in that passion career now, it's what do you want to do, right? And I want to do exactly what Sarah said to do, which is flip the conversation. I want you to turn that around, especially mainly to the people that know you pretty well, and say, just like Sarah said, well, you know me really well. Actually, I'd love to hear, what do you think I should do? Or even just, what do you feel are my strengths that I could put towards something that I could do? Because if you're not sure what you want to do, you're not quite sure how maybe your passions, your strengths, your interests, your values align with a potential career, why not ask those who are asking you that question, what do you want to do? Because they may have some ideas or may open up possibilities to what you couldn't have seen yourself. So, well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being on the podcast. Thank you
You're very
all.
welcome.
Thank you all for listening. It is so just such an honor to be part of your career journey and helping you discover your passion, speak your passion, and go after what it is that you want. Please reach out if you have any questions. You can find me at amanda@findyourpassioncareer.com or join the #qualified Facebook group as we help you on this journey. All right. Bye, everyone.